Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. This episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast is also brought to you by Let's Go Journey, a personalized service that shows you how to earn reward points and miles by paying off wedding expenses and then maximize those rewards in order to book first or business class flights as well as accommodations at your dream honeymoon destination. Learn more at letsgojourney.com. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Mariessa Gellman about her ceremony in Japan at EPCOT with a reception at GM Lounge in EPCOT. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Mariessa.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. I would love to start at the very beginning and find out how you and your fiancé decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
I mean, I've always wanted a Disney wedding for as long as I can remember. Before I met my husband, I was taking trips to Disney by myself, so I was going like all the time. And when I met my husband, it's only natural that I dragged him along with me. And, you know, the rest was history because it was just kind of obvious. Like, if we get married, we're getting married here. There was like no other option. It's like...
How did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
They weren't surprised. They were like, of course it is. We even gave our son like a Disney name. So of course they were like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Now, how many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
I have a huge family. We have a lot of friends between the both of us. I mean, we invited over 100, but when push came to shove, we had about 51 show up, not including us.
Got it. Did you set up a room block for your guests?
We did not, because I kept hearing about how the room blocks don't really benefit the guests. I mean, the only benefit to the room block is really that my husband and I would have gotten a free night at the hotel, and we weren't trying to like price gouge our guests that way. So we were just like, look, you stay wherever makes you comfortable. We just want you there. We need to stay off property because it's cheaper. You do what you got to do. And, you know, we just wanted to make it easy for the people that were making the trip to come out to Disney, because we know Disney's expensive. It's not cheap. And, you know, some people, they can't afford it, which is why I think a lot of our guests also declined, other than COVID being a reason. A lot of it was they couldn't afford it. So the ones that came, we wanted to make sure that we weren't financially straining them just to be at the wedding.
That's great. For the guests who did stay off property, did you send transportation out to meet them, or did you have them come onto Disney property someplace to meet your transportation?
Most of them took Uber or they rented cars, and then, you know, they had to meet at the wedding pavilion, and then the bus that we had set up came and got them and brought them to Japan in EPCOT.
Okay, great. Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event? I'd imagine that wanting to use Japan sort of determined the time of day.
Right. The ideal location was really Cinderella's castle. That's what that was always the dream, but it just was not in our price range. And we had to go with something more budget friendly. So originally we were looking at the Polynesian beach, and then they said for the amount of people we thought we were having, they said it wasn't going to work. So when we went back to the drawing board, we were looking at the different locations. We were like, well, EPCOT countries look a little more like affordable. So we went to look at the photos of the ones that we liked, and we ended up deciding on Japan. And so like you said, because it was in EPCOT, like the time was determined for us. We were looking for something in park that if we couldn't have Cinderella Castle that said Disney. We were looking at Tower of Terror, but then they said the event wouldn't start till like 11 at the earliest, and we had kids in the event, so we were like, that's not going to work. And then Animal Kingdom, because my husband loves Pandora. We were looking at that area, but they were like, your wedding's going to start at like 5 a.m. And I'm like, none of our guests or wedding people are getting up at 5 a.m. to come to this wedding. It's not happening. So the EPCOT time was a little bit more people friendly. So we went with that. And as for like the day of the week, we were supposed to get married on our anniversary, which is May 30th. And we were supposed to get married May 30th of 2021, but due to COVID, we had to push it, and we went to push it to May 30th of 2022. But one of our vendors had a conflict and couldn't do it, so we ended up pushing it to May 31st, which actually worked out better for us because it was a Tuesday, and it was brought the prices down. So that's how we picked our day.
That's great. Now, how did you choose GM Lounge for your reception?
We thought it would be easier for guests to stay within EPCOT. So we were looking, since we were already in Japan, as opposed to making them go out of one park and drag them to another one or, another location. So we were trying to make it easier for the guests and, transportation, because then we got to book all the transportation to get them from A to B. We just felt like, based on what the locations were for receptions in EPCOT for the amount that we had, we just thought the GM Motor Lounge looked cool, and we love that ride, Test Track. So it's cool because you can see the ride go around, while you're up in that venue area.
That's right. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, our son was 2 at the time. We're just under 2. And he was looking down the whole time, just watching the cars go by. It was like, so he loved it.
Did you use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
We did. We tried to book outside of Disney for whatever Disney would allow to save money. So we used Stephanie Caldwell for photos. We used Trinity Wedding Cinema for the videography. We used Laura Reynolds for hair and makeup. We also used Catherine Martell for suit and dress steaming, and Clark and Dagger for table numbers. They even made our wedding cake ornament replica after the wedding. And I've used them for a ton of other things post-wedding. They're great for 3D printing stuff. Wishes Thread Company, they did some things for me for the wedding. And Catherine Imundi for the officiant. So we used a lot of, outside Disney vendors.
That's great. How did you choose Catherine Imundi for your officiant?
She was in the Disney Facebook group, and she seemed to be one of the popular ones. So I set up an appointment with her. And we got to talking on the phone, and she was so nice, and, why not?
Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
Yeah, we went with a violinist. She was great. We chose not your typical wedding songs to play, so she was great considering we didn't go with like traditional wedding songs. So she did pretty good considering the kind of songs that we chose. For the reception, we went with characters because we were going back and forth with a lot of things. We were like, oh, should we do confetti cannons? Should we do this or that? And it was just like someone has suggested, if people are coming to a Disney wedding, you want something that says Disney. So what better way to say Disney than characters? So at the last possible second we could add them, we added Donald and Goofy in their tuxes at our wedding.
That's great. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors you would recommend?
Ooh, cake flavors. We had a few. Originally, we were going to go with a 3-tier cake, and we had got the cake tasting from Disney, and we got 6 cake flavors, 16 fillings, and we tried like every combination you could think of between those things, and it took us 3 days to go through it, and like we narrowed it down to like 3 different tiers, and we ended up going with a 2-tier cake because it was just more budget friendly, and we didn't need all that cake, which was good because we had a lot of cake left over, so it worked out. The tiers that we were originally going to go with, we picked a red velvet cake with cream cheese and caramel milk chocolate filling, and then the other tier we were looking at was the almond cake with peanut butter cup filling and apricot jam. That was a really good combination. And then my favorite combination, which was like the biggest tier of our cake, was the chocolate cake with tropical mousse filling and raspberry jam, and that came out really good.
That's wonderful. Did you add any other events around your day, like a dessert party or a welcome party?
Our welcome party was at Splitsville in Disney Springs.
Oh, neat. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about how that worked?
So we contacted their, party planner person. She was really easy to work with. We gave her the date and the time we were looking at, and she gave us different options, like to choose from. We went with the platter option. Like you just order however many platters you think your party's going to need, and they're all reasonably priced. We went to a lot of different restaurants at Disney Springs, and they all cost us like they would have costed like a fortune. And Splitsville, the food is amazing, and it's reasonable price, and it's a good time. And we didn't, if you wanted to add bowling, you could have. We opted not to do that because our wedding was so early the next day. But I mean, everybody loved the food there, so no complaints. And it was affordable. At the end of the day, I think it was like under 1,500, and that was with alcohol.
Wow, that's interesting. So if you don't do bowling, where they have your party?
They have like a section upstairs with just like tables, so they sectioned off an area for us. And I even had like an outside vendor I found on a Facebook group do a groom's cake, and we had that at the welcome party.
That's cool.
We also did a dessert party after the wedding, so we had because our ceremony was early in the morning, we did a brunch reception, and then we had a break in between, and then in the evening we had a dessert party. It was supposed to be at Tamu Tamu in Animal Kingdom, and then they ended up changing the venue without telling us at the last minute, which was weird because it wasn't even raining, so we don't really know why that happened. But I mean, the venue that they put us in was nice. I mean, for the amount of people that we had, and nobody noticed. So the only people that noticed it wasn't where it was supposed to be was us. So the food was fine, minus the beignets. We asked for beignets. We thought we were going to get the ones that they do at French Quarter, and they were not. They were different. Not the greatest, so I don't recommend those. But we did get the nacho bar, and that was awesome. We also did a Flight of Passage ride mix-in, and they took the amount of people they thought was going to ride, but nobody was counting, and I actually had less people ride than we had paid for, so I had emailed Disney and told them, I was like, none of your people counted, but I did, and we had X amount of people that opted not to go on the ride, so you overcharged me by this, and they were good about refunding the extra money for the people that didn't ride.
Oh, that's great. And then what venue did they move you to instead of Tamu Tamu?
They ended up putting us in the Harambe Train Station, which was a nice area for the size that we had. It just wasn't what we picked, and I was just curious as to why they moved us without telling us. So they didn't tell us until we asked when I walked by Camu Table and we weren't turning in there.
Interesting. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the wedding day all fit together?
Oh my gosh, it was chaotic, but I guess everyone says their wedding day was chaotic. I mean, my husband and I were up late putting together party favors for the guests, like till like 12 or 1 in the morning, and then I had to be up at 3:30 for makeup. So like, yeah, so it was just like a whirlwind of a day, and it was just to get all the hair and makeup, and then we had to go for the photos, and then it was like the pre-wedding photos, and like, so the hair and makeup was like 3:30. They had to start taking pictures at like 5:30. Yeah, it was like 5:30 in the morning. They went and got the groomsmen and then took them to the backstage of like American Adventure Japan to get their photos done. And then they came back and got the bridesmaids like an hour later, so like we could take photos. And then we did our first look photos. And then I know transportation went back and got my parents, his parents, and like anybody extra that was left over, and came back again to drop them off. And then the guests came, and we had a ceremony. The ceremony was supposed to be at 9, and they ended up moving it to 8. So we ended up having to do everything an hour earlier than originally planned. So 8 a.m. was the ceremony, and then our brunch reception, I believe, started at like 9:30 or 10. And then we were there for 4 to 5 hours, and then we went back to the hotel room, hung out, and then the dessert party was like 7:30. So yeah, it was a lot.
So, when you were planning, what were some of the most important aspects of the event where you focused your attention or your budget?
Just try to make sure we got what we wanted. Like the Cinderella carriage was a big thing. That was a big cost. And we kept going back and forth about whether or not we were going to do it. And weren't sure because Disney, it's really hard to plan with Disney because they don't give you pricing per se off the bat. So like they give you like a general idea, but they don't really tell you like, oh, this is going to cost you this and this is going to cost you that. And so the Cinderella carriage was a big thing that I wanted, that we kept going back and forth, like, should we do it, not do it? And you had to cancel it by a certain time if you weren't going to do it. And we managed to cut costs in different places to get it. So I got it. And it was nice. It was how I pictured it in my head. So I don't know. I've heard since I had my wedding that the carriage has gone up. I don't know if we would have done it if it was the price that it is now.
Right. And then were there any aspects that were less important where you saved your money or just your effort?
We saved on flowers. I ended up using an Etsy vendor for artificial flowers that looked real, and in pictures you can't even tell the difference. A lot of people thought the flowers were real, and then they came up to the bouquets and stuff, and they were like, wait, that's not real. And I was like, no, it's not, but it looks real. So we saved a lot of money going with artificial flowers. We just used Disney floral for like minor things, like every other aisle. I think I skipped, and we did like little flower bouquets, I guess, at the end of every other aisle, and then we used them for the boat for the we had a Tangled theme wedding, so we used Disney for that because you couldn't go outside for that. Yeah, we were very minimal on flowers, so we definitely saved there. Um, and then decoration we saved, but looking back at photos, I wish maybe we had gone a little bit more on decorations just for GM Motor Lounge because that room is so bare. Like if I had known what I was getting into, I might have added more color and maybe a little bit more decorations. But going through Disney for a lot of that pricing was eye opening.
What ended up being your favorite memory of your wedding day?
I think our favorite memory was probably our first dance because we had a choreographed dance that started with our wedding song, and then we cut it. We did like a record scratch, and it went into "We Don't Talk About Bruno." In the beginning of that song, they're talking about their wedding day, so we had a choreographed dance for that. So, so that was a lot of fun because we worked really hard on that.
That's awesome. Did anything go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
The timeline was rushed, and I think that was part of us trying to save money and time and just make it all work because Disney's timeline is so rigid. Like you need to be at a certain place at a certain time, and it's just constantly from the moment you wake up to the moment your wedding starts. It's just like go 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 go. Like we staggered the hair and makeup with the girls because some of them needed to go with like the guys, and then some of them went with me, and then the moms stayed behind because they were going later. They weren't needed right away, and I didn't really get my getting ready photos like with the girls and stuff like that. So looking back, it was like, oh, I guess I should have done it this way, and because we were just really concerned with trying to save money and save time, and if we had it to do earlier when everyone was going at the same time, it would have cost us more money because there's a surcharge when you get ready even earlier than I think 5 or 6 a.m. So we would have had to pay like an extra surcharge, and the way that we did it saved us a little bit of money. So we were just trying to like make things work budget wise to make this wedding actually happen.
Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
I think weather as everybody's worst nightmare, but no, we had good weather on our wedding. So no, I don't really think that we had anything that was like so bad that it was like, oh, it was awful. I think it was more of the, I guess, planning stages with Disney that honestly, looking back, if I had known what I was going to go through with planning with Disney, I would have opted for a Disney themed wedding at home.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
because a lot of my ideas got shot down, and it was just like, no, we can't do this, or no, you can't do that. I'm like, but you have this, and like, how come I can't do this? And it was like, it was either it was too much money, they couldn't do it for whatever, excuse my French, BS reason they gave me, or it was just like, oh, due to the venue we chose, we couldn't do this. So a lot of like my vision for the wedding got cut, and it was just like, no, you can't do this, we can't do this, you can't do that, you got to change this, or you got to do that. And oh, I want this, oh, that's going to cost you 3 times what you think it's going to cost. And it was a lot. And I feel like if we had done that, like a Disney themed wedding here at home at a venue here, I think a lot of what we wanted would have went, because I don't think we would have been that restricted in the venues.
Got it. Okay. Do you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
Just to really do your research and make sure that this is what you wanted. Like I said, my real dream was to get married in front of the castle, and we couldn't do that. So I said, okay, fine. We're going to do the park shoot photos in front of the castle. So we still have our wedding photos in front of the castle. No big deal. But originally we had wanted, we were looking into Aulani, and I was told if we got married at Aulani that I couldn't do wedding photos at Cinderella's castle.
That's not true.
Yes, I found that out after, and I was really upset because that would have saved us a ton of money. We just would have flew out immediate family in the wedding party, and that would have been it. Yeah, that's what I was told, because that's what we were looking at originally. And then we're like, oh, but they were like, oh, if you do that, you can't get your wedding photos at Disney. So I really wanted the wedding photos, and it was very important. And so we ended up doing the wedding at Disney because that was the only way we were going to get the photos. So, and by the time I was so irritated dealing with Disney about all the, no, you can't do this, or this is going to cost too much, and that, it was just too, you couldn't pull out of the contract by then. It was too late. So it was just like, you kind of just had to power through with it. I don't know, it was just, it is a lot. So I don't know. But yeah, honestly, if I had to do it over again, knowing everything I knew, I would have opted for a Disney themed wedding at home.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Mariessa, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's considering having a wedding or a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Well, I appreciate you. I mean, you were a big help prior to the wedding, too. I mean, you helped us out with our BEO and all that, so we definitely appreciated that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.